Welcome to another episode of Rose Resource Room. Today I'm here with Mrs. Somerville. Hey, lady, how are you?
I'm good. So glad to be with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your homeschooling journey.
I am nearing the end. Oh my goodness. It has been a little bit over 12 years. Um, I've got two kids that I've been homeschooling. My oldest is now, as of this weekend, a sophomore in college, and my youngest is a freshman entering into high school. So I've got 4 more years, on this journey. We started back in 2013, um, just on a whim. I am an adventure seeker at heart, and sometimes it's just, oh, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I had known one friend that homeschooled. This is not one, this is two, but I knew one friend. I do know math,
You
y'all.
can count. You can count. I believe you.
I had one friend who homeschooled, but they were in Georgia. And from a series of events, we decided to give homeschooling a try. And 2 weeks before school, I called up my one of my good friends and said, "Hey, we're not going back to the Christian school anymore. We're going to homeschool." And she said, "Hey, I'll do it with you." And I was like, "Yes, Lord."
Wow.
I've got crazy friends too.
I love that.
And it's funny. I told my husband, I was like, "Babe, what do you think about homeschool?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I was like, "Dude, you know I don't know what I'm
No
doing, right?"
questions? Right.
Like, you trust me? But he was late. We later found out like he wanted to homeschool the whole time. But he said he never wanted to put me in a situation where I felt like I had to choose, or I felt pressured to do it. I was home for about a year, maybe no, 2 years. I'd had my son about 2 years, and the Lord just lit a fire in me. At first it was a literal call to my husband. It was in October. Called and said, "Babe, I want to come home. I want to have a baby and come home." He's like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Dude, you know I don't like being home. I am not the housewife. Like, why would you say yes?" He's like, "Of course I would say yes." Came home, had my son, was home with him, and it's like, I like this.
Uh-huh.
And I never thought I would, because I have my I always wanted to be married, but I never pictured my life with kids.
Okay.
I was going to be the rich auntie who took really great care of her nieces and nephews. I wanted to be able to take you on fabulous trips and then drop you off at home. I didn't want to have to deal with dinner or diapers. Um, and when I had my own kids, I was committed to being a good mom.
Of course.
I also was committed to fulfilling the career that I'd started.
Okay.
And I couldn't have imagined the two working successfully. Um,
Mm,
but the Lord has had other plans, and He's shown me how I didn't have to choose. I could have both.
okay.
I could still make money at home with my kids. I could be a family adventure. It could be, I could enjoy being home. I could enjoy teaching my own kids. My education wasn't wasted. My
Mm,
student loans weren't for nothing. So it's been a quite a fantastic journey, and it's had its rough points, but
great.
it's been such a cool adventure.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your honesty because I've spoken to people who, before they even had children, they knew they wanted to homeschool, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful. I've spoken to reluctant homeschoolers who were like, "I had not planned to do this, but God made it so clear that He wants to do it, wanted me to do it." And then I talked to Type A people like my sister who the flight's at 11 and she wants to be there at 7. I'm like, "You're not the pilot. We do not need to be there. It's that early." And I thought I was Type A until I traveled with her. And then I have another sister who is like, the flight's at 11. Why are we leaving before 10? And I'm like, you don't want to miss the plane, right? So, like, there are different people in the world. And I appreciate you saying that not everyone's journey looks alike, but God is in all of it. And what you shared is a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about today in terms of moms making money. Like, my first question for you is, I know homeschoolers are not a monolith. Every family's not the same. We're not all the same. Everyone's journey's not the same. But in general, is it common for moms to work inside or outside of the home while they're homeschooling?
I think it really depends. It depends on what group of people you're asking. Um, there are stay-at-home moms, like you said, who have always wanted to be home with their kids, who motherhood was the whole point.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and there are people like me who's like who thinks, I came out of financial services, and so money was always on my mind. My money, other people's money, how to invest, save, purchase, of all the things. And I still am a Dave Ramsey coordinator,
Okay.
Financial Peace University. I've done everything from uh, individual securities, mortgages, the stock market, insurance, like that. I initially was going to get an accounting degree. I ended up with a general business degree. But spreadsheets, like finance and money, are always on my mind.
Right.
Um, and so I couldn't see if for me, if I was going to have kids, I needed more money. I need more money if I'm going to have kids than less money of being home. And
Okay.
so I couldn't see that. And God has taken me on such a journey where when I had my daughter, I stumbled across this ad for a mystery shopping shopper. And I was like, oh, okay. But you want me to pay you? And I thought, hey, what's it, $100? I've spent more money on courses than anything else. I'll pay $100 just to get the information to start.
Hmm.
I flipped that $100 into 2 years of income with when I ended up on bed rest with my daughter. $100 investment. Um, and so I wanted to, when I finally came home, as I mentioned after when having my son, I wanted to still work. And so I took something I learned while I was home with my daughter and found a way to still make an income. And so there are more and more. I think the real answer to your question is that um, every parent homeschools. Whether you're doing it. So I did delineate between full-time homeschoolers and part-time homeschoolers.
Okay.
So the full-time people are the ones who have signed the paperwork and filled out, they're officially homeschooling. They pitched their tent, they bought their books, they're homeschooling. And there are those who are doing homework and doing field trips and educating their child on subjects that are not the typical academic subjects, but they're
Okay.
still educating their children.
Okay.
And so in that case, yeah, lots of parents work and
Fair.
homeschool. On the full-time market, it's not the norm,
Okay.
although I am seeing it more and more where parents are working part-time or working parents are deciding, I still want this thing and I'm going to figure out how to do it. So I've
Mm.
known, doctors and nurses and accountants and people who have more flexible work schedules
Right.
where a nurse can work a 36-hour shift over the weekend or
Right.
overnight shift and
Right.
um, or a doctor who can set her own appointments, an accountant who has their busy season and then they focus on their kids.
Hmm.
Or families who alternate. Grandma has the kids during the day and she goes off to work. And I've even seen a family who hired
A
tutors
tutor.
with their kids during the day,
That
and
was
then
our idea.
yeah. So it can look so many different ways. The traditional homeschooler is typically a stay-at-home mom whose their main focus is their kids. But I think as I'm seeing where students are getting older, and particularly with the internet, a lot more parents are doing something else on the side in addition to their
Some kind of
homeschooling.
gig. Right. Okay. So before I ask you to jump in for with like all your amazing tips, do you think there's a recommended age or a season? Like, how do you know when it's time? So obviously, if there's a financial need, that's the time, right? But like,
Yeah.
if you're just doing this as a passion project, or maybe as a ministry, or as a volunteer, how do you know when it's the right time? Would you say to someone, "Oh, your babies are too young; it's not time," or "Your babies are only in grade 1 or 2; don't do it"? Like, what would you recommend, or what have you seen?
I would honestly say it's about fulfilling that need and that desire that you have. And so I'm reluctant to say while a parent with younger children may have less time as moms, That's something that we know we're good at, being resourceful and trying to figure out how to take a nap in between this child's many needs. You know, how to go grocery shopping with three kids in tow.
Right.
When we want to do something, we'll get it done. We'll figure it out. Even if it means we have less sleep or we're sneaking between. Um, I know we don't like to do it, but if that child has the iPad while we're doing something, because I think um, there's so much built up inside us that we get to release and
Okay.
put into the world. Um, I was just at this we're chatting before we started about my weekend. I was just at this marriage retreat over the weekend, and I got a chance to share about the two becoming one. And for so long in my life, I've focused on the oneness. And I'm not saying don't do that.
Right, right.
Um, but the Lord shifted, like there are two of you, and I've called each of you, and there's something that God has put inside of me that I get to fulfill. And my fulfilling that benefits our oneness, benefits our family. Um, and so I don't have a clear answer to when should you, when you feel it's right, when it is a burning desire, go ahead and do it. You will figure out as every mom does. We will figure out the when, the where, the how, the what. If that what is driving you, go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. So let's jump in. Tell us what's on your heart.
Ah, I like I told you like, when I started homeschooling. Actually, when I started with being home with my hmm, backup daughter. Um, I was doing the mystery shopping. The reason I was able to turn it into 2 years of income, um, partly for my bed rest. I went on bed about a year and a half, to be fair. I went on bed rest about 6 months into the pregnancy, and then I was home for over a year with my daughter. So I received income from my job, I think only for the first 3 months, and then that was it.
Right?
Um, So I went from mystery shopping, going running around different places. Now, mind you, I'm supposed to be on bed rest, so I don't recommend that. um, but when I realized, okay, I actually need to stay home, I had a job, I had a call from a scheduler to ask me to do a mystery shop. I said, I can't right this season. I'm on bed rest, I'm pregnant. I said, you know what? How do I do your job? How do you're calling me to schedule me to do a mystery shop because you're having difficulty fulfilling it. How do I get that job where I can call people where I can still work, be on bed
From my
rest?
bed.
Right. And she said, well, here's the company I work for. And then I took that one, I contacted the company and I went through my original mystery shopping list and I contacted a bunch of those companies and said, "Hey, can I schedule shops for you?" And a number of them said yes. So one of my first businesses was as a contractor for several mystery shopping companies.
Oh,
Um, in there, I discovered a company called Arise, which is still an active company today, and I was able to get a contract with Apple, with Circuit City, who's no longer in business, and AT&T. I worked from home for them with Circuit City and AT&T. I was able to tell people I was working from home. I had to tell them I was in a call center from in my hometown. I could use my actual hometown. Apple wouldn't let me do that. They wouldn't let us tell them. They said, "Oh yeah, we're at a call center." That's all we could say.
okay.
They didn't know it was in my bedroom.
Right.
But I kept finding that there were opportunities to work and to create an income that didn't pull from me being home with my family or be attentive to our homeschooling. When I actually started officially homeschooling, I did pull back a little bit. Um, I did odd jobs at times when I could, because I was learning about homeschooling. I had no clue what that was, and really, I was going on a lot of field trips. I couldn't maintain a schedule. Um, but yeah, I started to feel like there's a possibility, there's a way for me to make money. And I wasn't making, I hadn't replaced my income yet. But I was bringing in a decent amount where I felt like I could spend. on field trips and
Okay.
homeschool stuff, and without pulling out of our budget, which are
Right.
already tight because now we're on one income.
Right. So not straining the
Um,
family, but still having a little surplus
yeah,
to do the fun stuff.
yeah. And what I started to realize was all of these resources and material that I was finding, a lot of it was from moms who were at home. I mean, you think of classical conversations, in which we're both a part of, and they Lee Borton started this company in her basement. This was a mom who wanted to have, who needed something for her kids, and so she started it. Who knew it would grow into a an international company?
Right.
Um, there was a website I used, Half a Hundred Acre Woods.
Okay.
Um, a mom who was doing classical conversations and said, "Hey, I have these things I created for my family. Maybe someone else would like them too." A geography uh, resource that I purchased. It was a download from a mom who was doing that. All in one homeschool. All in one homeschool.com, which I've used a number of times. I actually used it my first 2 years of our homeschooling. Again, a mom who said, I'm putting all this stuff online for myself so I can go back to it as each kid gets older. I don't have to try to I don't have to think about what did I do with that kid when they were in first grade? How do I
Right.
repeat that now this kid's in first grade? She just put it all online. It was initially free. She eventually figured a way to monetize it. But these are mothers who have started businesses and taking homeschool out of it. You think of Betty Crocker and Mrs. Fields and who's the lasagna lady? Stouffer's, the
Okay.
Stouffer's lasagna. Like you think of all these companies that women started because they needed to solve a problem in their homes or in their work. Whiteout, made out, founded by a secretary who kept making mistakes on typing. You know, we've put the whole space scenario, the whole space missions. We only got there. I thank God for the astronauts and all those people who were instrumental. Um, the four black women who helped calculate all the things. Like, I thank God for all those people who did that. But frankly, there's a whole set of women who worked for Playtex, who got the contract to build the astronaut suits so they can survive in space.
Okay. Fair. Fair.
Women who had a particular even what you call a female knowledge base about hosiery and pantyhose that we use to get our entire world into space. So I think that there's what we have traditionally looked at, I think, as moms, as the things that were necessary for our home to work. I don't think we often see the value and the benefit for other people's homes as well, and see the business behind the cookies, the business behind the sewing. I just saw, my husband just sent me a link to a hair salon, a braiding salon, in fact, in Maryland. This woman took, and she's not a homeschool, I don't think. I don't know her personally, but she took the idea of she basically turned into a braiding factory, 24/7 open. Like you come in, everything's walk in. There are like hundreds of chairs, like 3 and 4 women working on your hair at the same time.
Oh wow.
Um, so it's quick, it's efficient, and she's open so no
Convenience
matter,
because she's open.
yeah,
Yeah.
any mom, any person who wants to braid and doesn't want to do it in their house, and you happen to live in Maryland, I mean, you can probably get a chair, a booth at her place and make extra money on the side, make money on the weekends when you got free time. Like there's so many opportunities out there that don't infringe on us being able to love our families well and to be present for them. And so my heart is to see particularly mothers recognize the giftings, the blessings that God has given them and say, okay, Lord, how else can I bless the world? He said he would make us a blessing so that we could be a blessing.
Mhm.
So how can I bless the world with what I have? Or how can I bless my community? If you don't have to start with the whole world. Although with the internet, you could be intending your community and end up blessing the whole world.
That's true. No, that's really good. So I'm going to do a quick recap. What I remember is you talked about if there's a ministry or a passion or something that you can turn into a business, that's a good place to start. When you share the mystery shopping experience where you couldn't physically be there, but you realize that someone is probably doing something from their home or from a desk or from a chair, you were resourceful enough, curious enough, and bold enough to say, how do I get your job? Because I can do what you're doing, right? Another thing that you kind of alluded to was when you talked about 100 Acre Woods or All-in-One Homeschool, about those books. If you make a resource for your children and you spruce it up, put a little nice font and some colors, that is digital content that you can sell.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're spending extra time doing it or taking away from your home school time doing it. You were going to create it anyways, so why not bottle it up and sell it? And even on that same token, I've seen a lot of people who have shared their stories, whether it's a blog or a resource, become keynote speakers or workshop speakers at
Yes.
homeschool events. And then now they have a product, whether it's here's a unit study or here's a curriculum that I created, right? So just
Mhm.
taking your gift or taking what you're already doing and then just sharing it with the world. Another thing that you talked about is something I just did with my boys yesterday. It's finding out that need and filling it. So I said to my kids, let's think about the bathroom. Tell me three things that you see that's an answer to a problem, but instead of just telling me, we need water, here's a faucet, here's a pipe, you have to tell me the backstory. And the reason I thought of it is I was taking a shower and I bought these hooks that have two sides. So on one side you have the shower curtain, on the other side you have the liner. And I'm like, some genius said, I don't want to take off the liner every single time I want to change
Yes.
it because I change the liner more often than I change the shower curtain. So how do I do this without having to undo the whole thing? So I kind of gave them the idea. They came up with so many different things. They're like, I'm this and I don't want this, so I created that, right? And it was just so good to just see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
But that's what you're saying too. You're in your house, you have a problem, whether it's the kids keep throwing, there's crumbs on the floor every time the kids eat, but I don't want to sweep every 2 seconds. I'm going to invent a robot vacuum, or, like whatever it is. Just you have this situation. You know, with all your knowing that you're not the only person who has this problem.
Right.
How do you create that solution? And the last thing I want to share before I let you tell me, like anything, any other tips you have is I know traditionally women are supposed to be in the house. So a lot of times people hear about working outside of the house or working inside the house. It almost seems like a feminine shift. And I don't think that's what the intention is. Because when I think of the Proverbs 31 woman, it talks about her, working and then meeting the merchant ships and things of that nature. And like she's doing all these things with her hands. She's staying up late to do all these things. So the conversation is not so much, hey, mom, go get out of the house and make some more money. It's how can you use all the tools, all the gifts, all the knowledge that God gave you to bless your community?
Right. Absolutely. And you went exactly where I was going with the Proverbs 31 woman.
Okay.
It's a lot of her work was outside of her home, but I would say it was home based. She was meeting the merchants with I imagine the produce from her garden. She was attending to the needs of her servants. Her husband was renowned at the gate, which means they knew her and her husband.
Oh, yes.
So I imagine her being present with him in different scenarios.
Right.
Um, and we forget, like, we're going out all the time. We're going to the farmer's market, to the grocery store, to the doctor's office. There are constant things that we're doing that puts us in the presence of other people.
Mhm.
I bought um, some hair covers last maybe about a month and a half ago in the parking lot at a what do you call at a rest stop while I was on my way from Maryland back to New York. A woman saw me, she saw my locks, and she said, "Hey, sis, can I show you something?" I said, "Sure." I went to the back of her car. She showed me some things that she had. I spent $30.
Okay.
No, there was I don't know where she was coming from or
Hmm.
what she was doing, but she had what she needed right there in the back of the car. I bought them.
Right. She met the need right where you were.
Right. She asked a simple question. And there's so much, you were talking about with your boys and how you were getting them to see that need. It is, we have this saying that more is caught than taught.
Yeah.
And while we're intending to give our kids lessons, everything we do, everything they see us do, and everything that we don't know that they saw us do,
That's true.
it's teaching them a lesson. So when they see mom taking care of their family, and in doing so, she's built a business, she's built an income stream, she's built a resource that also takes care of her community. It teaches them to the value of both
Mm,
family and community. It teaches them the value of service. The scripture says in Proverbs, I believe it's Proverbs either 26:11 or 11:26, it says, there's a curse on the man who has bread and doesn't sell it, but a blessing to him who does. And it's interesting that he doesn't say that there's a blessing for him who has bread and gives it away. He says the but for him
that's
who
right.
has bread and sells it. Because that if you are struggling to feed your own family, you're going to be less inclined to think of giving to others. And not that people don't, but people who
Right.
have little who still share what they have. But it's hard to maintain that, to consistently be in that state when you're worried about what can your family can the basic needs of your family be met.
Mm, yeah.
And the reality is, I think of another scripture in where the woman says, the Lord says to the woman, "What do you have in your house?"
Yes.
And that's why I think we get to look at what skill did we bring to our house? What benefit did we create, well, in our house, that we can go out and provide to the market? She says, "I've got a little cruse of oil in the jar." He says, "Go borrow some more jars and keep filling those jars and live off the rest." I
Right.
don't know how much she had to sell to be able to live off the rest of that.
Right.
And her kids were young.
Yeah.
So he jump started an entire business for her
Yeah.
from what she had in her house.
And I
And
appreciate
that's
you
what I want us to
sharing
look
that.
at. What do we have in our house?
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you when we just started, I thought, I wonder what resources or tips you have for like finding these ideas or businesses, but I think that's it. You have to be resourceful. Look at your hands. Can I sew? Can I cook? What can I do? Look at your
Yes.
skills. What am I good at? Right? And then that's how you create the business. So obviously you can always go online, find a customer service job, a sales job, um, all the things. You own your own business, things of that nature. But it's also what resource do you have? How can you be
Yeah.
resourceful?
Yeah. It's, for women that just love to cook. My husband is a fantastic cook, much better than me. Ladies, find yourself a man who can cook. But we have a family member who is taken ill and is in home and bedridden. And so my husband was meal prepping for him. And he was at the store and he ran into someone who said, "Hey, you meal prep?" She's like, "Yeah." So I'm actually meal prep for someone else. Like, would you consider meal prepping? Like, I'd pay you. Like, just that. Now, that's not something he's gonna do. But those little things where um you can easily turn something that you are good at, maybe not passionate about, and jumpstart something with it. It can lead to what you're passionate about, lead to the resources that'll give you the next idea. Just be willing to start with
Yeah,
whatever it is. And it may not make a ton of money initially. It may just spark enough interest and drive and put you in connection with the right people to get to the thing that you actually will end up doing and loving and thriving with.
yeah. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these amazing tips. Any final thoughts you want to share with us?
Yeah, I would say for all of us as moms, whether you have a financial need or not, I'd say look at where you can infuse entrepreneurship into your homeschool. And it gets to be something that either we do as a family together or something your children watch you do. Um, but our children are going to grow up and they're going to be out of the house at some point. And I believe God is going to prepare us during the time that we are homeschooling, for what's next. And so it may not be the business right now during your
Right.
homeschool, but getting the start, getting the resources, getting the connections, getting the technology know-how, so that when time is available, when resources are available, you're already in the thick of things. You know exactly what the next move is.
Right.
But I would say there is gold buried in the homes.
Yeah.
And
No,
we
that's
get
really
to
good.
find it.
Yes. And it kind of makes me think about my earlier question about seasons. Because as you were talking, I think about these homeschool veterans and these homeschool giants who their children are long gone and grown up, and they're coming back and they're speaking and they're sharing and they're mentoring and they're doing all the things. And they've turned a lot of their experience into financial prosperity, you know? So
Yes.
I definitely think it's just about understanding your season, understanding what God wants you to do, communicating with your husband to see what's needed at the moment. Is this the right time? Is my service needed? But just really trusting God to show you
Yeah.
what the next steps are. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. It is my pleasure and one of my passions.